Greetings comic lovers and welcome back to Casually Comics, the channel where we chat all things comics, from reviews of comics new and old to history to anecdotes, really wherever our whims take us. We must interrupt a parade of Clayfaces, even though we're only up to 4. Yes, I said only. It is time to talk about the Mud Pack storyline. Now one could just say, Mud Pack, the Clayfaces in existence up to that point in the DC Universe team up. But it deserves, oh, so much more than that. It was an experience, a story arc that brought joy on so many levels, and changes for characters. We had Jason Todd trauma, Looker Batman team up, Basil Karlo trying to resurrect Matt Hagen, the second Clayface, using tap water, and so much more. You know you want to know, you know you want to go one more deeper. Come with me and we'll be in a world of clay imagination. Clay imagination? Doesn't matter. Mud Pack. I'm too excited about this, but hopefully at the end you will be too. Or at least hopefully you'll understand why. But before we get started, I'm Sasha, and if you're enjoying this content, you know what to do. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. Join us in this comic book journey. Mud Pack is a story arc written by Alan Grant with art by Norm Brayfogle, colors by Adrian Roy. Who are you? How dare you back up during the Mud Pack? Do you even know who Clayface is? It lasted 4 issues and began in September of 1989, but it did not happen alone. No, this event had a tie-in or a lead-in in Secret Origins number 44, also in 1989. Secret Origins was a series that retold origins of characters, but they weren't reprints, they were retellings and at times updates or reinterpretations. So issue 44 was a telling of the origin of the Mud Pack, meaning that it was a retelling of the origins of the Clayfaces up to that point. And it's fascinating because it does change some things, and it adds some new info at points as well. And it also explains some small details that will be in Mud Pack itself. So of course I'm going to tell you all about it. But an overview, if you want to revisit any of these origins, then we have the Clay list. No, I won't stop calling it that. So this issue of Secret Origins was written by 3 people. The first segment is by Mike W. Barr, whose name will be familiar to you if you've been following this Clay list. He's the creator of The Outsiders and the 4th Clayface, Lady Clay. The art in this story is by Keith Giffen. So our first tale is a retelling of Basil Karlo's origins, the first Clayface, with the framing device that the 4th Clayface has come to visit him in the hospital. They update the time period of the story, which is understandable, and they also give Julie, Bruce's fiance, a super 80s makeover. They also now say she's a girlfriend, not a fiance. How could they? His fiance. The tone is completely different because of all this, and it feels more gritty exploitation film, and the noir feel is gone. The art style alone gives it a completely different vibe from the original tale. It adds a lot more than it has to, and is trying to approximate that golden age brutality, but doesn't have the same mindset as that era, so it comes across more like an 80s action movie. It also simplifies his motivation to how dare they remake my movie. So if you hadn't read the Golden Age tale, which there's a strong likelihood that one wouldn't have, this gave you enough for what you needed to know. But it did place Karlo more as a mwahaha cackling madman than the man with more deep-seated and thoughtful issues, alongside, you know, mwahaha murderous tendencies that the Golden Age was working with. I kinda want to compare those 2 stories side by side, but also not. I could live in this rabbit hole, and that's scary. That tale ends with a less than a page recap of Lady Clay's origins, and Karlo saying they should team up, but she leaves. The second segment is by Dan Raspler with art by Bernie Mariold. This is a reimagining of the Silver Age Clayface Matt Hagen's origins as a zany, oh so wacky comedy. And a decision that seems to have been made since it came from the Silver Age, and that's what most think of when they think of that era, the madness. So this tale, it's like a fever dream at points. Like when he first starts to transform after coming into contact with the protoplasm, he slams into something on the way back up to the surface, and then his head is gone. He smooshes his head. I have no head. Oh man, what a day. Goodbye, cruel world. Learning to control your powers by wishing that you looked like you did, or comedic suicide. The choice is yours. This story is an experience. Doesn't hurt. Doesn't hurt. At least it keeps him just hanging out in his underwear. I can't recognize Hagen unless he's cosplaying as Ben Grimm. This tale is ultimately there, so we know how Karlo got a sample of Hagen that he's going to use in Mud Pack. Hagen being dead post-Crisis on Infinite Earths and all. The final, and in my opinion strongest of these retellings, is Preston Payne's, largely because it's written by his original creator, Len Wein. The art in this one is by Tom Grummett. His name is Clayface 3. Yeah, we were at this point calling them numbered Clayfaces. You know you have a problem when. I love that this one has a thank you note to his co-creator Marshall Rogers for visual inspiration. I don't know, it's just classy. This tale's framing device is that Payne is watching an expose on himself presented by Jack Ryder, aka the Creeper. But there are several key facts that are wrong, so in a rage he launches into the correct version of his backstory, which features something I very much wanted in the original, which is the conversation between him and Matt Hagen, the second Clayface, which led to Matt Hagen giving him his blood that he then used to transform himself. I want to know what he said. So, who the hell are you, man? And what do you want with me? Payne asks for his secret, but Hagen repeats that he's taking it to his grave, which is something that he said back in the Silver Age story. So this third story has more fidelity to the Silver Age than the second one does, at least in terms of what happened, perhaps not in tone. However, Payne says that he will speak to the parole board on his behalf. So Hagen agrees to give him some blood. He doesn't think that Payne's gonna find anything out with it, and Payne does speak to the parole board, but it does nothing because he's just a random scientist who works at Star Labs. This story not only gets even more into Payne's own voice, but also ends on a fantastic reveal that the TV in his cell isn't connected. So he's not watching anything. The layers there, that he's just constantly imagining people misunderstanding him, just as he has always felt misunderstood his whole life. Deep stuff, and once more sad. Stop it, Lenween. So with that long sidebar out of the way, we're gonna look at the Mud Pack. Do you really need to read the Secret Origins issue? No. No, you do not. Does it make anything in life better? Yes, yes it does. The Mud Pack, featuring a free Batman poster inside. This is a fun cover. The Mud Pack written in a muddy splattered font. The clay effigy of Batman about to be stabbed with a hand coming out of the shadows, reminiscent of the first Clayface's crimes. Simple, but effective. Part 1, Men of Clay. We open on the third Clayface, who is being cruelly mocked by the Arkham Asylum guards, whose entertainment is using the inmates' cells as their own personal soap opera. Well, I mean, they're probably about a week away from being killed on the Joker's next breakout. Preston Payne says that he was visited by an angel to his mannequin wife Helena. He tells her that he wants a divorce. This escalates until her lack of response leads to him striking her and her head flies right off. Helena, I don't understand. It wasn't meant to be like this. Helena was the one thing keeping Payne remotely stable, as he is at this point in DC history just living in constant pain. This from not being able to expend the excess protoplasm in his system. With her gone, he snaps. My mind is a scream. My eyes see only red. Helena's dead, and I'm burning inside, and I don't care anymore. Across town, Basil Karlo is strutting the streets in a giant melodramatic cape, par for the course in Gotham. He's thinking about how horror is dead. He acted in real horror films. They don't need all that sex and gore. Get off his lawn. Still, times change, Matthew, and we have little option but to change with them. It took me a minute to realize that Matthew was Matt Hagen. Basil Karlo is that friend that calls you by your full name at all times. Confirmed. Matthew Hagen. It changes everything. Matthew Hagen pays for his art. Matthew Hagen works at the stock exchange. Matthew Hagen trades all the stonks. Some hoodlums try to mug him for his giant sack he was carrying, but inside was only dirt. And so his Clayface is revealed, the mask he wears, and he kills them. Horror? I'll give them horror. Batman has been informed of Payne's escape and is headed to the scene, while a disoriented Preston, who was shot up with tranquilizers as he was fleeing, collapses, only for the guards who are about to come across him to be set upon by Looker. You'd rather gawk than shoot. Your mistake, darlings. She leaves with Preston, but not before yeeting Helena's head. Sorry, honey. This is by invite only. Strange stuff, Clay. With me, it was only makeup, a mask. Though I hid behind Clay, I was still only a man. But it was different for you, eh, Matthew? Yours was the true Clay. The clay of life itself. So we see that Karlo is pretty obsessed with Matthew. I love that he envisions him having a Pantene moment with that protoplasm, just dousing himself in it, because he's worth it. The following is a science lesson with Basil Karlo. Clay is magical stuff. Some say it was the necessary bridge that built life itself. And now, Matthew, we will put that theory to the test. For if I understand my science, the addition of plain simple tap water will replace all the organic constituents necessary for you to live again. Stick to the acting, Basil. There now, Matthew Hagen, also known as Clayface 2. Look, I know you were the first, but I don't think anybody's calling Hagen Clayface 2. Maybe in their files, I'm pretty sure most people just called him Clayface. I'm sorry, replaced again. The man is made of literal clay, he earned it. Live again! This may be my favorite comic of all time. Sorry, Matthew, you'll just have to sit this one out. Batman is investigating Arkham and sees Looker on the tapes, and that she came to visit Payne that afternoon. Of course, it wasn't the real Looker, but Lady Clay, assuming her form as she did back in The Outsiders. Once she's taken a form, she can always go back to it, and the power set stays too. This is so she could use her psychokinesis and mind control powers to manipulate Payne, whom Karlo views as insane and beyond reach. Says the man who has a clay statue of Matthew propped up on the table for their meeting so that it can participate and be included. He gives them all a great intro, even if he doesn't wait for Payne to wake up for it. This is where we're given Sondra's name, by the way. Batman doesn't even know it. We see in his computer files it says name unknown. They have 3 goals. 1, fame and fortune. 2, acquire power. 3, destroy Batman, which is also 4, which is kill Batman. I don't know why it's 2 points. Karlo made a clay statue of Batman for himself to stab. That's true melodrama. Part 2, another stellar cover, the clay in the empty Batman costume. Part 2, heart of steel, feet of clay. I see you, part of the animated episode title, despite different spellings. You are noted. The real Looker is having a nightmare about Clayface. She's awoken from it by an angry Batman, asking why was she visiting Clayface 3? She says she wasn't. He doesn't believe her for a bit, but then she reminds him of, oh yeah, the 4th Clayface who impersonated her. She offers to help in the case, citing boredom, but he refuses. But Leah's not gonna let this go, not after the dream she had. Meanwhile, we see the headspace that Sondra was in when she went to Karlo and when she teamed up with him. It was after she had realized that living lives as other people wasn't fulfilling her. I realized I don't belong to that world. I'm a freak, an outcast by nature as well as by choice. She found after her visit to Karlo that she started to think of him as a kindred spirit, a fellow outcast, so she was there to greet him after his release. It was there that he sprung the whole mud pack on her. She's a bit concerned about Preston though, as she too feels that he's probably too unstable to be in the group. In fact, when he wakes, she transforms back into Looker and uses her abilities to mesmerize him as he quickly realizes he's being manipulated. This timeline places the first Clayface's crimes at 8 years prior. Dang, poor Gotham, just a parade of Clayfaces. Batman quickly assumes that his clay-faced foes have formed some kind of mud club. But no time for that. Preston Payne is robbing a bank with Batman. Look what? We interrupt this action to remind you that by DC's internal logic, Lois Lane is one of the most attractive women in the entire universe.
The prison warden says Karlo was released 3 days ago to be met at the gate by some beautiful woman who looked like Lois Lane.
Clark can hear you, you know. Batman is trying to figure out the structure of this gang. He figures that Lady Clay isn't leading it because she's a follower. Matt Hagen is dead, also being called Matthew, and Preston is unstable, so he figures that Karlo has to be the head. Look at how annoyed he looks when this lieutenant accuses him of being at the robbery scene. How dare he do his job? He assumes that this is to taunt him and mock him for some reason. The fact that Clayface 4 assumed the shape, that is. Batman has a persecution complex, which is exacerbated by the fact that lots of times people are after him.
It wouldn't be the first time Gotham's hated me.
You okay, bro? Lady Clay is starting to have second thoughts and also to feel bad for Preston. She says that he's not well and that messing with his mind is just making it worse. Still, she continues to go along with Karlo, who says that Payne's time is nearly at an end for what they're doing. I love this panel of Batman sitting cross-legged reading the paper on a gargoyle. Karlo was planning on having them hit a casino night where the proceeds go to the homeless, the fiend. But Batman figures it out, only to be stopped by a sight that he could not have imagined. Part 3, this cover of Batman sobbing at Jason's grave. It says Robin on the cover, but it's 1989, so at this point it could only be Jason. I like that the cover doesn't want to reveal his secret identity either. They're like, shh. Who's Batman? Bruce Wayne? What? Oh, look at the ghostly Jason pointing at him. This was still peak period for Batman feeling trauma and guilt over Jason's death, and it would work its way into stories in fascinating ways, and sometimes into stories you wouldn't expect, like this one. Clayface 4 uses Leah's abilities to tap into Batman's psyche. She doesn't understand all of it, but she knows Robin is a sore spot, so transforms into him to fight. It's a good psychological tactic. However, Robin, again, is a child, and so Batman is able to physically defeat this apparition pretty easily. But in the process, he forgot about Payne, who had been knocked out, and his exoskeleton of strength, and so he gets tackled to the ground. They said it made him 3 times stronger, some cops in a car earlier in a past issue. Payne goes to touch him, but Lady Clay won't let him kill. Not really for moral reasons, but because it goes against the plan. She knocks out Preston and transforms into an eagle, then picks them both up and flies back to the theater. Lady Clay at this point is starting to get really fed up with Karlo. But he says once more not to worry. Now they're at the fun revenge part. For revenge is a dish best served as melodramatically as possible. They're tying him up, a Clockwork Orange style, and Lady Clay needs to use Looker's abilities to mess with his mind, bring forth all the trauma. So you would think that they're doing this so that they can project his worst fears onto the screen in front of him, but no, Basil actually put that there so that he could play his movie, The Terror, the one that he did the murder spree on, the one that was being remade that caused him to snap. I love the commitment to narcissism. Batman is swimming in his own darkness. Stirk gets a big panel. He was a serial killer created by Grant, who appeared a few issues prior in issue 592. He was also in Arkham when Batman was investigating earlier. Karlo and Sondra are having a toast to success, but Clayface 1 is a duplicitous cad, and he spiked the drink. It was all a ruse. He wanted them to get together so that he could take samples of their blood so that he could become the ultimate Clayface. Your powers are far too potent to be wasted on a lunatic. Rude! Apologize. Looker is on the case, and thanks to a combination of talking to police, finding a bit of clay, and her telekinetic, psychokinesis, whatever abilities, the abilities that are what they need to be, is zeroing in on where Batman is. The panels of Batman just falling deeper and deeper into his own psyche are fantastic. While that is going on, Payne has finally woken up and is no longer under anyone's control. His first reaction, get big mad at Lady Clay. But as she starts to explain what's going on, he starts to feel sympathy. Tired of trying to be everybody else but me. He tells her to stop crying, that he likes her face the way it is, which makes her cry harder, but out of happiness, because no one's ever said that to her before. And they kiss against the backdrop of the end on the screen as the terror ends in the background. Yes, that love bloomed at Mach 5. Yes, she spent most of these issues controlling him. Yes, he tried to throttle her when he woke up. And yes, it wormed its way into my heart anyway. The two of them leave, because honestly they weren't that invested in Batman anyway, despite what he thought. Looker arrives to find Batman, and he is not okay. Last part. This cover is still good, but it pales compared to the ones that came before it. It's Batman fighting what is meant to be the ultimate Clayface, as we're shown that he has Payne's caustic touch, but the shape-shifting abilities of Lady Clay. This one opens with Sondra flying with Preston over the city as they discuss what Karlo must be planning. The ease with which their relationship happened, they just get each other. Ugh, I'm a sap, a puddle of mud. Everything's so blurry. Sondra is mad that he took advantage of her, but when Preston asks if she wants to go back, she says, nah, let's leave it. Let them deal with that. And he says that their life can be different, that it doesn't have to be all them being hunted, that they can have happiness, and oh, how I wish that were true. Leah uses her powers to go inside Batman's mind and help him overcome his demons. She helps him out, but says that he would have snapped out of it eventually. No. I don't agree. The two decide to team up, well, more like Looker decides to tag along, and it works out because they've worked together before on The Outsiders. And having two people to deal with this many Clayfaces, as at this point they don't know that the other two have split off, is a good idea. Batman uses his detective skills to figure out Karlo's plan, and also decides that since he's not a scientist, as we saw earlier, he's gonna need someone to help him implement this whole ultimate Clayface transformation. Recipe for one Matt Hagen: just add tap water. Karlo has found someone to science the blood for him, which means once more it's time to just go straight into the vein. Trials are for real scientists.
Dear Lord, what's happening to you?
Clay, my dear doctor. Clay is happening to me. He kills the doctor who helped him just as Batman arrives, and he's got all the Clayface abilities. He actually does call himself the ultimate Clayface after going on about how all the best monsters are misunderstood. The battle rages on, and Karlo's going full snake bottom, which is just a classic look for the Clayfaces. Love a good snake bottom. Looker shows up to help as the two of them had split up, but this ultimate Clayface does get them both down, but then he falls prey to a villain trap and an actor trap. Monologuing. The panel of him doing it is fantastic though. He looks crazed and menacing. It's great. Batman sees that he's charging up Preston's powers, so he tells Leah to overload them and turn it back on him. Look, Looker has many powers. And it works. The melting is upon him. Not sure what's gonna happen. Batman tosses him out a window and then he falls through the earth and just keeps falling. That's why part of this title is China Clay, because the joke is that he's gonna fall all the way down to China. Ha 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 ha. He falls through screaming that they'll pay. He's even shaking his fist, committed to the melodrama to the end. Batman and Leah share some banter about old times and about how he prefers to work alone, and he tells her that he likes her new costume. She tweaks it ever so slightly so that people would stop thinking that she was Clayface 4. And so we end on Preston and Sondra out in the forest, watching the sun set, saying that they can't just stay outside forever watching sunrises and sunsets, but they can for a little while. Kiss. The end. Woo! Another. This storyline is a lot of fun. It's definitely more than I was hoping for when I heard the words Mud Pack and Clayface team up. Side note, a commenter made a joke about how they should have opened a spa, that they missed their calling, and I live in that headcanon now. This story has it all. Action, drama, romance, psychological trauma, a truck that has been plowing the entire time. It's got team-ups, it's got callbacks, and they make sense with the canon that had been established at that time. Each Clayface is in character and they interact together in ways that make sense. It's again one of those stories where we know more than Batman about what the characters are planning and how they feel about him, which creates interesting pockets to inhabit when you see that he thinks something that isn't actually true or is different from what's going on. This story made each Clayface feel like they had weight, and like they'd earned that title. You could have your fave, but they each had a moment. I mean, Hagen kinda sorta, but he's dead. Not everyone's death can have as big an impact as Jason's. Now, this isn't a perfect story. It does leave you with some questions. Like, if the plan was to become the ultimate Clayface, then why revive Hagen at all? If Hagen and Fuller have the same power set, did he really need any of Hagen? Not that I mind. I wouldn't miss Karlo trying to revive Hagen by yelling "live" after making a little Hagen statue and mixing the water and the mud. So good. Preston isn't treated the best here in terms of how he's talked about, but he still gets moments to shine. And when this happens, it shows that really people have the wrong impression, or at least an incomplete one when it comes to him. Karlo is almost a really brilliant villain here. I mean, he's fun, but he's just skirting the cusp of being fully realized. All the pieces are there and even referenced a bit, but it never fully comes out. As it stands, his motivation is mwahaha villainy. I deserve to be the ultimate Clayface, for I'm the ultimate actor. Melodramatic horror villain movie speech. But there are the seeds for him wanting to become a real Clayface so he could become a real monster. All that talk about how horror has changed. If he fancies himself the ultimate actor and says people must change with the times, why not have him become a real Clayface so that he can truly become the ultimate actor, not just the ultimate Clayface? Again, it's almost there. So close. And some may feel that it did that without outwardly stating it. The romance between Clayfaces 3 and 4 warms my heart. Alas, their story does not end happily, and the tale of Clayface 5 is truly depressing. And it had some panels that as a parent will haunt me. Heck, even if you're not a parent, they're still upsetting. I had to take a minute after Cassius and read something heartwarming, like that imaginary story where Lex kills Superman. Mudpack is a fun ride and a treat for people who are deep into the Batman lore. And even if you aren't, it's still a cool adventure, where you get to see lots of villains and Batman gets to flex all kinds of muscles. Combat, detective, and you see him have to confront some of his issues. And team up with an old friend, acquaintance, teammate. It's a cool story that these days, at the time of this recording, is often just mentioned as a blip, like, oh, Mudpack, the Clayfaces teamed up. But I hope, as you just saw, it was so much more. But those are just my thoughts, and now I want to hear yours. Did you enjoy Mudpack? Or are you going, it was okay? Are you okay? What Clayface did you enjoy the most in this outing? Do you, like me, enjoy Looker's costume more the more you look at it? Share all your thoughts down below. While you're down there, please do all the YouTube things. Like, share, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell notification so that you never miss a vid. Thanks so much for taking time of your day to spend it discussing comics with me. I always appreciate it, and I will see you again soon. Bye-bye.